Got his shoulder up. All right. Welcome back to Monday Meeting, everybody. Got the three just consistent ones here. You know, we're always showing up. We got the parish who delays his vacations on count of us. He's always showing up. Chad's out working, so that's all right. But today will be the final Monday meeting of Matthew. Not the final Monday meeting total, but the last chapter of Matthew 28. And I feel confident we're going to get through it today. What do y'all think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we just decide we're going to.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we are. We are going to. So I'm excited to get through this, and I guess we might move on to Acts next time. That's what Chad was wanting to do. But since he's not here, we can actually decide where we want to go next. We'll just be ready for it on Monday.
Yeah, we'll get through the first verse of the next book. We'll go ahead and start it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So he has no input.
Might go to Revelation or something.
Go to Ruth.
Oh, yeah, that'd be big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't nobody say nothing about Ruth.
I know it.
Well, let's go ahead and get into it. You know, I don't like to dilly-dally a whole lot.
You're about the Lord's business.
Yeah.
We could do Matthew 28 and Philemon today. And that way we've gotten through a whole book when Chad's absence. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
Let's
one.
not dilly-dally.
You know, I like to read the scripture as I go through it. I don't just like to talk about the points. I like to read through it.
I agree.
You know? So that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm reading from the NLT today. Matthew 28, verse 1. Early on Sunday morning, as the new day was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went out to visit the tomb. Suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, rolled aside the stone, and sat on it. His face shone like lightning, and his clothing was white as snow. The guards shook with fear when they saw him, and they fell into a dead faint. We'll pause right there. And now, let me get my notes pulled up.
Another earthquake.
Another earthquake.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think earthquakes were common are they common in Israel?
I'm not sure. I
meant
mean,
to look that just geographic.
Just thinking of current events or whatnot. I
usually.
can't recall when there's been like a show, nothing.
I wonder if they knew what was going, like if they knew that was an earthquake.
Right.
But they had just experienced one a few days before.
Right.
So it was Friday and now it's Sunday. Jesus is buried in the tomb. Everybody's mourning and sad. I don't know why, because he told them he was going to rise on the third day. And so I don't know why they didn't believe that, or maybe it seems like sometimes they didn't even remember it. They don't remember him saying that, but they just moping around. But Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to visit the tomb. The Gospel of Luke says they were bringing their spices, I think it says, or their herbs or whatever. And I don't know what that was about. I don't know if that was some sort of preservation or to just keep it from stinking, like honoring the tomb area. So they, at any rate, they were going to the tomb. They feel this earthquake, and an angel of the Lord came down and rolled the stone aside and sat on it. I don't know why he sat on it. That's a detail Matthew gives us, but why did he roll the stone aside?
Well, that's where they could get in. It wasn't for him to get out.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
I think so they could, I mean, it says, right, so they could see.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people think that he had to roll that stone out so Jesus was able to walk out.
Yeah. No,
Well,
But that ain't the case.
right.
Well, why did he sit on it? That's a weird detail.
Yeah.
And sat on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either.
Just kind of sat up there for a minute. And his face shone like lightning. His clothing was white as snow. And the guards shook with fear when they saw him, and they fell into a dead faint. So they just passed out.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going on. And the angel spoke to the women and said, "Don't be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He isn't here. He has risen from the dead, just as he said would happen. Come see where his body was laying." That's why he opened up the tomb. rolled to the side, sat on it, and said, "Come in here, see where he's laying. He's not there." And then he tells them, "Go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and he is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Remember what I have told you." So it's Galilee must have been a pretty special place, because that's where the angel tells them to go. That's where they were told to meet at the Last Supper. The angel said to go there. Jesus called his first few disciples in Galilee, and then we'll see here shortly that that's where he says his last words and gives what we call the Great Commission. And so there was something special about Galilee. That's where they told him to go, and Jesus will say that in a minute. I don't know what it was about that spot, but there was something special about that. And so the women ran quickly from the tomb. They were frightened, but also filled with great joy. And they rushed to give the disciples the angel's message. And as they went, Jesus met them and greeted them. And they ran to him, grasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said, "Don't be afraid. Go tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and they will see me there." Now, again, in the Gospel of Luke, we see that some of the disciples were walking down the street, and Jesus appears to them, but God blocks them from knowing that it's Jesus. Have y'all ever read that?
Yeah.
And so they're having this conversation, and just Jesus, and he's like, "Why are y'all so sad?" And they're like, "Hey, you've been living under a rock. Don't you know what happened?" And they're telling all this to Jesus, but because God blocked them from knowing, they don't know. And just like that, they appeared to the women as they're on their way to spread this message. And Jesus said to them, "Don't be afraid. Go tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and they will see me there." It's interesting that I don't know any other place that I assume he's talking about his disciples, right? Go tell my brothers.
Yeah, that was my assumption.
Yeah. And this is the first place that I know of that he calls his disciples his brothers. Do y'all know of any other spot?
No, I don't.
I mean, it's important, I think, to reckon. It's not just like another term. It's not like, oh, he just changed and he's going to call them something else. Like, he's intentional with every word. And I think it's because now at this point, he has been resurrected. And the Bible says that we are also resurrected with Christ. And so now they are covered by the blood of Christ after this resurrection. And I think he is referring to them as brothers, as in their sins have been blotted out, wiped away. They're clean and seen as perfect by God. And now they are brothers with Christ. God sees them as equal, as sons of his own. And we talked about maybe last week where Jesus calls them disciples, then apostles, and then now we see he's calling them brothers at this point. Y'all got anything up to this point?
I don't.
Chili?
No, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's another point where he calls them that. I don't know of one. But it did also make me think of when he talks about bringing division, and earlier it's almost the opposite of calling them brothers. He's like, "No, you're not my I'm about my Father's business." Like, I mean, I've turned to it, so I might as well just read it. But a man's enemies will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me or brother. Yeah. So, but it's like now, like to Blake's point, now he's calling them brothers. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is a significant shift. I mean, that makes sense. I don't know if this is the first time. It probably is.
I think then, their focus was the earthly relationship, the brother, like blood brother, like born of the same parents. And that's what Jesus was telling them. Hey, some of you's going to commit to live by me, and your brother's going to say, I'm not living that way, and it's going to cause division. And here, he's telling them that they are his brothers. To us today, maybe that doesn't seem significant, but to them, back then, for Jesus to call someone else their brother was probably pretty significant, I think. It's a little detail, but I thought it was worth noting. And this is the ultimate thing, Jesus resurrecting from the dead. I know we covered, just 10 chapters there, or 10 verses. But if this never happened, then Jesus was just another great teacher. He was another, did a lot of good things, shared a lot of good messages and principles. But if he never was raised from the dead, he's just another one of those. And this is what we believe as Christians. Now, the religious leaders didn't want people to know this. They knew the same thing. They said, "Oh, buddy, he just came back from the dead, and he's not here anymore." And Corn was talking some about this last week, about how the guards actually went directly to, or the religious elite went directly to the guards rather than to, who was it, the Pilate or whoever.
Yeah.
So verse 11, as the women were on their way, some of the guards, so this is happening synonymously, Matthew's telling us. The women are on their way to tell the disciples what's happened, and some of the guards went into the city and told the leading priest what had happened. A meeting with the elders was called, and maybe was it you, Chili, saying, like, who saw this happen? How was it discussed?
That meeting, the last meeting at the end of 27. Yeah, I was like, who saw that meeting? It seems like it's kind of in secret, but maybe it was a public. Maybe the chief priests are just there in the temple, and it's just like, hey, they make a big scene, and people are like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, and we see another one of those. A meeting with the elders was called.
I imagine it looked similar.
And they decided to give the soldiers a large bribe. They told the soldiers, "You must say, 'Jesus' disciples came during the night while we were sleeping, and they stole his body. If the governor hears about it, we'll stand up for you so you won't get in trouble.'" So the guards accepted the bribe and said what they were told to say. And Matthew says their story spread widely among the Jews, and they still tell it today.
Yeah, the wording is, "and this saying is commonly reported among the Jews until this day."
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
That's an odd parenthetic note.
Yeah, so Matthew knew that this was being spread amongst the Jews, and his mission with this, his goal with this letter was to tell the Jews, no, that he was the Messiah and he did raise from the dead. And so he's calling out what they believe to be true on their side, and identifying that as false. And again, it would be nice to know who saw this meeting and how that came about to give it credibility, but we just trust that this is the Word of God and the truth, and that Matthew had a credible source to realize that that was a scheme to discredit the resurrection of Jesus. And I think that's even some people's argument today. They say, well, how do we know that didn't happen? It's lasted that long. And I think it's important to note here also that the things we say and decide to do really can have a long-lasting impact. That was just a rumor, right? It was a lie, but it was a rumor, right. Like, hey, go tell them this. And then that started spreading around like wildfire. And I'm sure there was stuff added to it and taken away from it, but the general meat of the story was that Jesus didn't really resurrect. It was his disciples. Somebody came and took him out of there and hid him because they want to act like he did resurrect from the grave. But this was not true. So the story spread widely, and they still tell it today.
I know we've talked a lot about, how they just, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the elders, they were just set that, hey, the Messiah was going to be this certain thing right here, and and I just always stick to, I just cannot believe that they did not believe. And the man got up, and they heard about it from his death, and they said, well, we need to meet and talk about this. And instead of saying, whoa, he is indeed the Son of God, they said, no, let's go talk to these soldiers. Because, I mean, what did they think was going to happen after he got up from his resurrection?
Yeah.
I mean, it just blows my mind, man.
Yeah, they were probably scared of his power.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, they figure at this point he's already done so much. Now he has resurrected.
Yeah.
Now what's he about to do? And instead of yielding to him and accepting him for who he was, they decided that they will further ramp up their war against him. Now let's go start this lie about what happened.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, Lord, we're sorry that we didn't see this, that we came out against you this whole time, but now we see that you are the Messiah. Why they didn't do that, I don't know. People get set in their ways. You know it?
Brood of vipers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. People get set in their ways. We even do stuff like that today.
I agree, yeah.
We'll be so darn focused on this one thing, we can have obvious evidence that something is not the way that we're believing.
Yeah.
And we say,
Right.
What was you about to say, Chili?
Well, like, what did they think actually happened?
The Pharisees?
Yeah. I mean, because if you actually think about it, the soldiers didn't see Jesus rise again.
Right.
They were like blinded by this angel that came down and, appeared as dead men or whatever it said, so that obviously, so they came and told them that. Mm-hmm. They didn't say we saw, they said we just had an angel come down to this tomb and roll the stone,
Right.
and he's not in there. And so, so like, what did they think happened then? I mean, what did they actually, like Corn's saying, had they not believed, maybe they literally thought, well, it couldn't have been that we know that he ain't who he said. So,
but did they think the angel got him?
They had to just
the body
think
and
that
left,
they thought something other than, I kind of think that, I don't think they thought that, he resurrected, and we just are going to refuse to. I think they were like, no, this is some tomfoolery happened.
The disciples had this plot to.
Yeah, so they were like, so tell them that's what it was. Like, just make them believe that it was that, because they're trying to. They're also trying to cover up the angel appearing, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, don't tell that governor. This better not get to the governor that an angel came and knocked y'all down. Like, do not say that. It's just, it's very.
Yeah, they were trying to keep it from getting to all they cared about was maintaining what they had.
Yeah.
They didn't want it to get to the governor because it would have been bad for them. They didn't want it to get to the people because it would have been bad for them. They just wanted things to stay how they were. But that wasn't going to happen. So in verse 16, the 11 disciples left for Galilee, going to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some of them doubted. Jesus came and told his disciples. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So the 11 disciples left for Galilee. They went there. When they saw him, they worshipped, but some of them doubted. And Matthew, doesn't share it quite like the other Gospels do. But was it Thomas that he says, come feel the holes in my hands, come look at the holes in my feet? But, when we read the other accounts, Jesus is just kind of popping up in these other places. Like he's popping up on the road. They're eating in this house. He pops up in the house, and they're like thinking he's a ghost. And he's like, no, I'm not a ghost. I got a body. Come here. And then even that says, I'm hungry. Y'all got something to eat? And they give him some fish. And so he's going and around, and he's appearing to all of these different people. I think it's said that he appeared to 500-something people between his resurrection and ascension back into heaven. So outside of just the disciples. But I get it. I get, doubting a little bit. Because clearly they had some, today we have these ghosts, if you will. Corn, you've seen some ghosts before. I don't know what's going on with that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what they are.
But clearly back then they had some ghosts too, because when Jesus appeared, they kind of thought he was a ghost, whatever that was. And Jesus even gives some credibility to it and says, ghosts don't have bodies.
Yeah.
Come feel me, I've got a body.
Yeah.
I'll eat some fish with you. And so I get that they doubted, because even though he said it, it's a once in whatever you want to call it, like it never happened before.
Right.
Someone to resurrect from the grave, and it's pretty unbelievable. But Jesus bears with their unbelief, right? And he says, "All right, I get that you're doubting. Come feel this. Come feel my body. Look at this. It's me. I'm talking to you." And I think he did this to help establish this belief that he did in fact resurrect, because had he just rose from the grave and said, well, either y'all believe it or not, but I'm going up into heaven and y'all can meet me here, it's like, I just think we see Jesus' long suffering, his patience with us, his willingness to walk through our doubts in him. I think in our life today, even in certain situations we might go through periods of where we say, I don't know what's going on here, and you start to have a little bit of doubt. But we see Jesus was patient with his disciples and everybody else in that time, and I think he is still today. And in verse 18, we get 18 through 20, we get the Great Commission. Jesus came on this mountain and told his disciples, I've been given all authority in heaven and on earth by God. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. That's a big one there.
It is. Yeah.
So first he says, I've been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Again, I think he's establishing credibility. And why had he not been given that before? Why is he telling them this now? Did they not?
I think he's just reiterating it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's said it before, right? And saying it again, like.
Yeah. We're just reminding them. And he tells us, go make disciples of all the nations. Now, we're going through the book of Matthew in church, and we're back in 10 right now, where Jesus gives the pastor said the first commission. He says Jesus went out to 12 apostles with these instructions. So this time he's with 11, right? Because Judas killed himself.
Yeah.
But he's got the 12 here in chapter 10, verse 5. He says, don't go to the Gentiles or the Samaritans, but only to the people of Israel, God's lost sheep. Go and announce to them that the kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cure those with leprosy, cast out demons. Give freely as you have received. So he doesn't really say much about baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son. He doesn't give much emphasis on that. He just tells them to go to these specific people, the people of Israel, and he tells them to heal the sick, raise the dead, cure those with leprosy, and cast out demons. Now, why he chose to, during his time on earth, just focus on the people of Israel, I'm sure there's some theology on that, but I'm not really sharp enough to know. But that, nonetheless, that was what Jesus chose as his earthly ministry. Right, I'm sure that there were some Gentiles that did come along, that did become disciples of Jesus, but that wasn't his focus. But here, praise the Lord, he opened this up to all of the world and didn't just focus on the people of Israel. And I think that could be a common point of discussion, that Israel is God's chosen people and the Gentiles are just out of luck. But we see the contrast here in verse 10. That was the command. And then in chapter 28, at the end, we have the Great Commission that he says to go and make disciples of all nations. He doesn't say anything about casting out the demons. He doesn't say anything about healing the sick. He just says, make disciples of all nations and baptize them. And that brings me to a question that we could probably talk a long time about, but do you know about the cessationalists, Chili, and the people that think that basically those gifts and those things have ceased since the disciples, and then some people think they still exist? What do you know about that? Because, I mean, I don't know where they get that idea from, that, they have these gifts listed out that they think no longer exist. But clearly that was the focus on Jesus' earthly ministry, was doing those miracles. It was a
spiritual
focus.
gifts of healing and things like that. I mean, and all the rest. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because it seems that back when Jesus was on earth, that pretty much if him or any of us, other than the one example we see where he says this kind of only comes out through prayer and fasting, it seems like every time they would say, be healed, cast out a demon, it was just like that. Right. And today, it's far less. Now, is that because of our faith? Is that because something has changed that we don't understand? I know Parrish has some stuff to say about this too. But he's probably not studied up, so he probably won't say anything.
I don't know. He may be camera shy today or microphone shy today. But, yeah, he'd know more than me. I mean, because when you said, do I know about it? Yeah, but it's about the extent that you just said. Like, there's a belief that has fully stopped.
Yeah.
And it's all weird to me. It definitely seems different than it did when Jesus walked the earth, just like Blake said, right? I mean, that doesn't happen. We don't see that. We don't. But then again, you hear people all the time talk about, like, well, your eyes aren't open to the worldwide. Like, people are healed all the time and, things are happening. And I'm like, well, yeah, well,
I've even experienced healing.
Exactly.
And Chad has experienced this thing.
But you were just by yourself with prayer. You know what I'm saying? Like it definitely looks different. Yeah. I mean, at the very least, it does look different. So I don't know. I don't get that caught up into it though. I mean, because that's not very consequential to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think the important thing to consider is that when those things happen, it's not because the Lord wanted you to not suffer. It's so that he can be glorified. It's not because he saw you and just was moved with compassion and like, oh, Blake's hurting so bad. Let me just do this for him. It was so that he could be glorified, so that I could see a little bit more about his character and who he was and his power. And that wasn't that wasn't what Jesus came for, to do miracles. But that was a big part of his earthly ministry.
Yeah.
And then it shifts, and basically when he's leaving, he says, therefore go and make disciples of all the nations. So when these two different commissions, if you will, the one focusing on Israel, the one focusing on all nations, the people change, but also from Jesus' words, so does the mission. He tells them something totally different. He says, go and make disciples of all the nations, and I got to imagine he's beckoning back to making disciples. Like, remember how you guys stayed with me. Remember how you guys learned from me. Now you do that same thing I did for you, for all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right, so I think that the church today does a good job at doing a lot of baptisms. We baptize a lot of people, but I think that we fall short on this second part of teaching these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you. Because the moment you get your baptism, you get your salvation, and that goes down as a statistic. In general, well, not in general, but in many churches, I feel like this part is what falls off.
Oh, yeah.
They kind of, the people fall by the wayside. They say, hey, I got you going. Like, we got you going. Now it's up to you. But it's not. Like, that's just the start of it. To teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you. and not so that you can be saved. We see this is coming after.
That's right.
Right? He says, make disciples, baptize them, and then teach them. So this isn't anything to do with the salvation. He's not saying teach them to keep these commands so that you can be saved, and then once they get them right, you baptize them. We should pay attention to the order of this, that we teach them to obey the commands, and that is Jesus, and that's God sanctifying us, shaping us into his image as we could keep those commands, and we get a little bit closer to that image, if you will, as we move through life. And he gives us this last promise, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Because I'm certain if this was me standing on there, I'd be like, I'm not fit for this. You're telling me to go make disciples like you did and baptize people and teach them to obey these commands. Like you gave us, you kind of shook things up from what we thought. And this has only been, how long was Jesus' ministry on earth, they say? It wasn't very long. And he gives them this promise that we should hang on to today, that he is with us always, even to the end of the age. He's saying this to the disciples, but he's also saying this to them because they're his brothers, we see earlier.
Yeah.
And we are, that we are resurrected with Christ. And so that's a promise that we should hang on to, and something that we should think about when we're out sharing the gospel. We shouldn't, the first approach shouldn't be to tell someone that they're wrong, that you need to be keeping these commands. The first approach is to just go and that's the first thing we do, is just go and make disciples of all nations. And how do we do that? By going out, living it out every day in your interactions with people, sharing the gospel, telling them the good news that they are dead to their sins. They can't be reconciled back to God unless they accept Jesus into their heart, and their sins are covered by his blood. And then that starts the process of baptism and of teaching the commands. What do y'all got on that?
Yeah.
Covered down on it.
I mean, I another point about the first commission versus the last Great Commission here is, even I just think it's important to remember, like, whether it's the same as it was then, or, the healings are different now, or it's ceased or not, or whatever. Like, either way, if somebody is healed today, whether someone's involved or not, or if it was just you sitting alone and you pray and it happened, you know what I mean? Like, nobody touched you. And, or if that does happen today, like, or when the disciples were doing it to people, it's important to note that the common thread through all of that is the power came from nothing but the Lord. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not in the people doing it.
Yeah.
Like, the disciples didn't have power that people don't have today, like, on their own.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Right, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
and if anybody does lay their hands on somebody and they are healed, well, it ain't because of that person.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you got to get the basic part of that, making disciples, baptizing. I think you've got to have all that down before you can move on to the other gifts of God. And I think that's probably why you don't see the gifts exercised or done so often now, is because we're not even doing the first part.
Yeah.
Correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be. I think that another thing that's worth noting is that Jesus kind of reiterates the Trinity here. He says, baptize them in the name. So, not names, the name, one, of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And this is, this Trinity would be something that we don't ever see Trinity in Scripture, but this that we have named, this 3 in 1, we don't see it many places. We do see it many places, but the Jews then wouldn't, this would have been a kind of new concept to them. right?
Yeah.
In the Old Testament, they wouldn't be really thinking about that a lot, if any, I guess. And so he's bringing this up and telling them, we kind of read this and we say, yeah, that's right. But if we put ourselves in in their shoes, these things, he's very particular with the words he is saying, obviously because he's Jesus. So we should pay attention to every single thing that he's talking about here and not just gloss over that, oh yeah, he said the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He's giving, affirming the Trinity to them and to us. And another thing with baptism that I talked about on Resurrected a couple weeks ago is this, if we look at the account of Exodus, they started in slavery, and then they were delivered through the water, through the Red Sea, and then led into the Promised Land. And then we kind of see this cycle of slavery, kind of being in the wilderness, delivered through water, and then into the Promised Land. And if we look at many other accounts in the Bible, we see that same cycle. And even here we see it, that we are dead to sin. We must be made into disciples, accept the Lord into our heart. We are to be baptized, which is what? Delivered through the water. And then we are in the wilderness right now. Like our life is synonymous with the wilderness. If we look at the Israelites wandering through, there's good times, there's bad times, there's times where they're, make their little bull idol. There's times where they might idolize the wrong things, but God is always calling them back unto Him, and the Israelites are usually repenting, some of them. And so we see this cycle even here at the end of being baptized through the water, led into the wilderness, and then eventually being led into the Promised Land. So that's all I had on 28, guys.
Well, why don't you explain what baptism is about? A lot of people may not even know the purpose of baptism.
Tell them. Go
Posing
ahead.
that question to you.
Well, yeah, baptism is not something we do for salvation. It's something that we do because of salvation. So it's not what saves you. So we give our life to Christ. He calls us. We decide to yield to this call. If Chad was here, this would be a much different conversation, but he's not, so I can explain it in this manner. And then, the Bible commands us to be baptized. So it's something we do out of obedience. It's really a public, I guess, confession to the church or the people that witness it, and you're saying, hey, this is what happened on the inside of me, and the best way I can display this is by symbolizing me being buried going into the water and coming out a new man, and now I'm committing to live this way for Jesus in front of all you people. And so, I wasn't baptized until, I got baptized like probably 3 or 4 years ago. Chad baptized me in the lake down there. And I had been saved for I don't know how long. I had been serving the Lord for many years. And it was just something, I wasn't committed to a local congregation. Well, I was, but, sometimes, I think even I had a little bit maybe of pride of like, I've been serving the Lord for 10 years. I don't need to get baptized, And there's a little bit of pride like, I've kind of passed that step. But the Lord convicted me of that. That's something I should do. And, really that's just being disobedient because He clearly calls us to be baptized. And we shouldn't expect this grand experience. We shouldn't, expect some supernatural the earth to quake, and but we do it out of obedience. And it's even, if you will, a command. He says, teach these new disciples to obey the commands I've given you. I think we can even look at it that way. So I guess I shouldn't say there's not anything great about baptism. I would just say that there's not, don't expect the supernatural wild things to happen when you get baptized. It's an amazing experience that everybody should do because Jesus commands us to. But, so yeah.
Well, what would you say to the people that some of these denominations that baptize at birth, newborns, see, I see the baptism the same as you, as profession of faith. I think that comes after salvation. You profess your faith that, down with the old and up with the new. But you see a lot of denominations that baptize at birth. Would they need to be rebaptized after their salvation?
Well, I think that a lot of those infant baptisms, well, I don't know. I've always understood that to be like a child dedication. Like
That's the way I see it. But I
Yeah.
don't see it as, how can you say you've been saved, baptized,
yeah,
and go on with your sanctification? This little baby don't know. He don't even know what's being done, or
yeah.
a child before they come to believe. To me, it has no bearing on a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, other than, I don't know. Do y'all know anything about the baby dedication? And like,
I don't.
I don't know if, is that in script, Mike, is that scriptural if people dedicate? No, what's the deal with that?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
I've never read it or seen it,
No.
but that's how I'd always taken those infant, where they
It
sprinkle.
just seems like something good to do.
Yeah, and people want to get caught up with like baptism by what do they say, immersion, where
Or sprinkling, yeah.
yeah, all the way under, or can you sprinkle like however you want to do it. I don't know that I don't know that the Lord really cares if you're in the lake or if you're in the baptistry or if you're getting water dumped on. Like, the point is making us is making this outward profession of your faith through symbolizing this. I think that immersion or submersion, whatever they call it, is a good way, but
Yeah.
I mean, let's not get caught up in all the details of it. But I don't think you can you can't. It's not that I don't think. You can't baptize a kid or an infant who hasn't, and expect that to be their outward profession of what happened inside, because nothing's happened inside yet.
Right.
They can't comprehend that. What would you say about it, Parrish?
I totally
I know
agree
you're
with
Catholic.
Well, don't Catholics do the same thing? I mean, is that not part
Yeah,
of
what do
their...
they call it? Christening or something? Or
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know a lot about it. Chad's the Catholic professional, and you are too. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at, if that has happened to you as a baby,
Yeah,
then by all means, in my opinion, go get baptized
Yeah.
after your salvation.
yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would.
Well, I've got a question about Matthew.
You always got good questions.
Well, this may be getting off the topic of Matthew, but unless Corn has something else, this
I
can,
do not.
Matthew leaves out a lot after Jesus is resurrected. I mean, a show enough lot. Because the story of Mary running to the disciples, I believe, is in all four Gospels. And then in Matthew, I mean, that happens and Jesus gives the Great Commission, done.
Yeah,
But I don't know the exact number that you can kind of figure out from how long, but there was Jesus was here on the earth for a while after he resurrected.
yeah.
Like, it wasn't the day he resurrected,
And then all this happened.
he did all this stuff and then ascended. No, like,
Right.
he spent days, and I think they were confused during that time.
Yeah,
So, like,
you gonna hang around a little longer?
yeah, I
or-
think there was people that, even his disciples were like kind of in and out of even doubting who he was, like, because I think to me, it adds context to this time because this is so fast. I mean, we get the soldiers are bribed story, and then the 11 disciples went away into Galilee to the mountains Jesus had appointed for them. When they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. So we hear that. But like that seems like the same day. A lot of time
Yeah.
had passed. I mean, Jesus performed miracles after he resurrected. You know the fish story?
Yeah.
Where he said, cast it on that side of the boat. And that's after he resurrected.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still
Yeah.
performing miracles. And then when Thomas puts his hands on his side and in his nail wounds.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
It's after he resurrected. Like, there's times where he, they said Jesus would, like, go away and then come back to them, and someone would be like, is this Jesus?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, you know what I mean? And then he kept, we get the story of him appearing to, 500
Yeah.
eyewitnesses
500,
that
yeah.
weren't even his disciples, you know what I mean? And they all saw him perform. I mean, it's just amazing. I think it's just worth mentioning when we're covering Matthew, because it is left out that a lot happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot happened.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that just confirms that they didn't all get together and write this account, because you got different perspectives. They didn't just get together and come up with it.
John's gospel lists a lot of the things I just mentioned, and then also has a few verses in there where he says, and Jesus did a lot more than this too.
Yeah.
But this is just what I'm telling you. Like,
Yeah, and I think the reasoning for that is even less that they didn't get together, but more about they had different missions. Because you figure if he was writing, if you were a Jew, and you wouldn't care about it wouldn't matter that Jesus did all of those details if you didn't first believe he was the Messiah.
Right.
So Matthew's saying, he's like, I think he's intentionally leaving all that out, because it would just be, they would say, it would be like, oh, and then Jesus did this miracle, and they'd be like, look, I don't even believe he's the disciple. Why do you keep listing these miracles that he did? And it's just going to sidetrack their thought. But all Matthew is focused on is that Jesus rose from the dead. Here's some evidence to prove that he did resurrect, and here's some of the myths you might believe. Let me dispel those and what happened and why that was told, and here's the evidence of it. And he's just straight to the point on Jesus as the Messiah. And so I think he intentionally, I mean, there's all the details we as Americans, or Gentiles, if you will, want to know. They're not in the book of Matthew. If you want to know the fullest account, the most details, don't read Matthew.
Right.
But if you want evidence that Jesus was in fact the Messiah, and you want to read this from a Jewish, what do they call the Jews that aren't messy, just regular Jew, Orthodox Jews or whatever. There are Jews that believe Jesus was the Messiah.
oh, yeah.
Right? And then there's some that don't. And that's who he was talking to at that point, which was a majority of them, I guess.
Right.
So I think that's a big reason that it's so straight to the point. When we cover 28, it's like, what is this, 20 verses? But then you go read Luke or Mark or John, and the chapters are longer. They have more and different details. And so that's a good point, Chili, that all the other ones say the same thing, but even really more. And Matthew's version of this is just the skeleton version. It's just, here's Jesus and what he did and why that's true.
Right.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Now, I don't know the actual timeline, but it's it's just amazing how much actually happens, even I guess in a short period of time. That's
Yeah.
But Matthew felt the need. Like, obviously the biggest thing was the Great Commission there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
like nothing is listed literally after his resurrection, other than that.
Yep.
I mean.
Yep, that's the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even mention the ascension into heaven.
Right.
I mean, he just leaves it at that.
And, another thing in 19 was, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. A lot of people think that's like, they take that as the international missionary call. Like, well, Jesus said, go make disciples of all nations.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, we got, that's a singular, selfish-minded American thinking that America is all there is, and he's calling us to go to all these, when really all of these other countries, which a lot of these other countries are closer to the origin of Jesus than we are, and
Right.
we think we got to go over there and tell them how it's done and what, but really if you would interpret this, it would be like, therefore, as you go, or in your going. And so when we read it that way, we get a little bit more practical application to it, and we say that, I'm not saying that people shouldn't go to other countries and things. I think that's good, but this is not what that means. It's saying, therefore, as you go, therefore, in your going, like in your day-to-day life, make disciples of all nations. The all nations means all people. If you're a Gentile, if you're a Jew, if you're a Samaritan, if you're in America, if you're in wherever you are, as you go, make disciples. It doesn't matter who they are. Make disciples of all nations.
Yeah, it's only pretty relative recent history that we can even go from country to country that doesn't border our country.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like traveling great distances was, well, traveling great distances I would say were common then, but not
relative
truly
to the
great.
effort, right?
Yeah, truly great distances, like certainly not crossing oceans.
Yeah.
Right.
That's only relatively recent that we can even do that. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think that call is to try to hit every spot on earth yourself either.
Right. Yeah, but that's used a lot, for international
Yeah.
missions. They'll say, he said, go to all nations.
Yeah.
But, and again, I think that's good. I mean, I have done that myself. I'm not knocking that, but I'm just saying we should interpret this as our day-to-day life. Therefore, in your going, he's been given all authority in heaven and on earth, and we are in relation with him. Therefore, since that's the case, go and make disciples. Since he has all authority, he's given that to you, and because of that, go make disciples of all nations as you go day to day. And be sure of this, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. So that's Matthew 28.
That's Matthew.
Matthew.
We'll go to Matthew 29 next week.
Son.
I guess we'll be in Acts next week. That was last I heard.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to Chad yesterday because I didn't have my phone.
Well, if we're just going to let him, decide it, and we're not even going to have a vote, that's fine.
Yeah,
Well, we could vote now.
Yeah, we can.
What do you vote for?
I mean, I like Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be good.
Chad doesn't like. He doesn't read. I'm gonna say he doesn't like. He doesn't read the Old Testament very much. At least I don't hear of him talking about it. If he does,
Probably not.
I am excited about Acts though, because I've read through it, but I hadn't sure enough gotten into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am excited.
And that's
about
that's the start of the church.
Yeah.
That's the start of the church, and really the start of where we are today.
Yeah.
In a sense, Jesus has now left and turned it over to his people, to where he is no longer physically present. And that's kind of the start of where we are today. So it should be really applicable. A lot of this we've been looking at is history and
Right.
still applicable, but, a little bit different than I think how we can look at Acts. So
I think Parrish was wanting to read the book of Enoch.
was he?
Yeah. That's what he was talking
He
about.
reads that. He studies that Geneva Bible. He studies the Geneva Bible, so he has extra books.
We'll get in that Titus.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Titus.
he was wanting to read the Gospel of Barnabas. It's a known fallacy. I mean, I told him that. He's like, "Oh, that's a good one. You read the Gospel of Barnabas?" Jeez, Parrish. Good night. If you guys see Parrish, y'all talk to him. Hit him up on Facebook.
Teach him.
Yeah, hit him up on Facebook. Let him know. All right, thank y'all for tuning in. We got to get to our comms check on Patreon, so cut it off, Chili.
Good job, Blake.